So what's your recommendation to rise up the way you rose in the hierarchy?
So, do have some consistency. So I think a decent stint at any company is like 5 years.
How did you find your passion?
So when I did this 50 change, when I decided I'm going to move away from the corporate world to do things that I love, I really asked myself, I did a few psychometric tests and so on.
Sure.
And I read this book called Ikigai. Somehow I fell in love with it. And I actually thought, let's see what it's saying, something interesting about meaningfulness, about the purpose of life and things like that. And I started exploring spirituality as well. So I found my passion as a consequence of, I think, that book, the fact that I hit this midlife 50 age, and I started asking myself what truly matters to me.
All right, hi everyone, welcome on board. एक क्वेश्चन लोग मुझे हमेशा पूछते हैं कि सर ये IIT, IIM ब्रांड करने के बाद कुछ होता है कि नहीं होता है. Today I am going to be sitting with a person named Mr. Navin sir, who is the professor of practice at Soil. And this guy has done fantabulous job in his life. जो तुम सोच रहे हो ना कि मैं ये करूँगा, क्या जिंदगी होती है IIT और IIM के बाद, बेस्ट बिजनेस स्कूल के बाद पढ़ने के बाद, आज वो डिस्कस करेंगे. Sir has spent nearly 13 years at IKEA as well.
That's right.
Sir, welcome sir. Really humbled to have you on board, sir.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
बहुत बढ़िया sir. You were one of the first few employees at IKEA also.
IKEA India, not first few, I think it was around for about 10 years before I joined them. So the IKEA was sourcing for a long time in IKEA from India. And I joined them around 2005, and yes, I was one of the early joiners.
Yeah. Wow, great. And sir, so you helped IKEA to grow from 2004-5 onwards?
So grow as in see, IKEA was basically sourcing products from India. At that point in time, there was no retail.
From India?
Yeah.
What?
IKEA has about 50 suppliers in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, even Sri Lanka.
Wow.
And so there were offices in India. So IKEA sources through its own offices in India, and there are suppliers who manufacture IKEA products in India. So I joined that.
Oh, so your job was to make sure that India वाला product अपने बाहर अच्छे से जा रहे हैं, faster जा रहे हैं. You know operations?
Yes. Supply chain. Technically, it was supply chain. So.
Sir, वो छोड़ो. I'm inspired by your IIT and then IIM life. When was IIT Madras, sir? Which year?
I passed out in 91, metallurgical engineering.
Passed out 91. I was in 4th standard when I graduated. Wow, sir.
You make me feel old.
No, you're not old at all. By the way, me and sir chilled out over a coffee bit before that. We discussed a lot of stuff. वो हम कभी off camera बात करेंगे. Sir, उसके बाद, and when was IIM Lucknow then?
Just 2 years after that, 93, IIM Lucknow. Wow. Straight after IIT, I went to...
How was life, sir, IIT, IIM? ये इनका सपना है, sir, IIT, IIM.
So IIT and IIM have a lot of glamour associated with it. But one of the things that hits you when you join, when I got into IIT Madras, before that, I was like a topper. I was generally considered very bright. And so I would sort of had a bit of a swollen head maybe about my capabilities. But when you get into IIT, you start feeling a little relatively dumb relative to many other people because there are much brighter kids out there. So one of the things is that. So you suddenly are thrown into this bunch of brilliant people. So you do end up, readjusting, becoming a little more humble and understanding that there's a lot of bright people out there.
True, right.
But it was fun. I had a lot of fun at IIT. I think it wasn't just about studying. It was a tough grind, but I had a lot of fun. I think I became a more social person in IIT. So
yeah? Before you were a nerd.
Yeah,
और
exactly.
वो क्लास में सिर्फ एक ही दो लोग होशियार दिखते हैं ना, वो गिस्सू जो नंबर ले आते हैं, and rest of are like normal.
बिल्कुल.
Right? I think I couldn't make it to IIT. I went to NIT Surathkal. तो हमारे से सब loser. Surathkal used to be number 1 NIT हमारे टाइम पे, REC बोलते थे.
It's a brilliant institution.
Yeah, that's what people say. Thank you. But sir, come on. That's the humbleness you learn at IIT. And it makes you humble. And sir, it's a good quality to have early in life, right?
Yeah. I think you have to be, you have to be realistic. Being humble isn't an attempt at being humble or something.
Yeah.
When you're realistic, you end up becoming humble because you know that at the end of the day, you're no big deal.
मेरी request इनको यही रहती है कि why studying good institution is always because the peers around you are going to be so smart, and then this rubs off on you first of all, right? And secondly, it makes you humble, and then you are like, अरे और करना है, नहीं तो you are you're on cloud number 9.
Yes, exactly. And you can make mistakes when you do that.
And you realize it in the first week of joining the college.
Yep.
And how was Lucknow, sir? Lucknow was fun.
Lucknow was also fun. I think I was like a all-rounder kind of guy. I stood for elections, was cultural secretary, sang songs, joined cultural events. So I was more of I was less of a study guy and more of a fun guy. So
And you were an introvert before your IIT
I would
days?
say probably in my school days I was an
Introvert.
relatively an introvert, yeah, and very shy with girls and all. So I tried to turn all of that around.
And Lucknow pਹੁੰਚ के sir started his own glory. Started singing songs and all.
Yes, Hotel California was my favorite.
What? क्या बात है? Were you singing on the stage?
Guitar.
Oh, and you
Freshman of the year.
क्या बात है sir, क्या बात है. देखो भाई, this is life. And sir, tough question. IIT versus IIM, choose one.
That's a tough call. It's a very tough call because there are two totally different domains. But okay, if you want a quick answer, IIT. I think that's where you learn how to think. That's where your fundamentals get grounded in anything. When you learn math, when you learn physics, when you learn chemistry, your fundamentals become very strong. So everything else is built on top of that, whether it's management or it's any other discipline. Your fundamentals being strong is very important. And so I think IIT forced me to think hard about questions. You learn physics, but unless you understand the fundamentals of physics, the whys, the hows, nothing can be built on top of it, because if your foundation is shaky, what gets built on top of it easily falls down.
True that. So IIT. IIT versus IIM, which had better peers?
See, better I can't say. So it was a bunch of nerds in IIT. It was a bunch of much more social people in IIM. So IIM had a very diverse group of people. So actually more interesting. Because in IIT it's all nerds. And I was relatively a more social guy. And I went to IIM and I thought that everybody is social. And it's a very diverse group in IIM because they come from multiple backgrounds.
Who have gone ahead in life? IIT folks or IIM folks? Your batchmates?
Whoa. No, I think very interesting. No, there are some folks in IIT who have gone really places. There's people who are CEOs of global companies. Same has happened in IIM, but as a percentage, I think the percentage of IIM people who have done very well in life is higher.
Is higher? Oh, wow.
At least that's the rough numbers that I can crunch from my batches.
Is it because of in IIM you are more cutthroat?
Yes.
And IITs were also national brand. There also it's a national brand. You got some non-engineers as well. You got engineers as well. You got a mix and match of both. Why?
So IITs, see, what happens is IITs, you have a lot of nerds. Now, so the nerds can become scientists. They can become super specialists, but they don't necessarily rise in the corporate ladder. IIMs trains you to go up the corporate ladder. That prepares you for a different thing. It teaches you communication.
Some of the IITs actually do a master's there as well. Sundar Pichais of the world, you know.
Of course, yes.
Then they study and then they kill it.
Yeah.
Super. Study wise, IIT पढ़ाई के IIM पढ़ाई किसमें ज़्यादा मजा आया?
Maza IIM में ज़्यादा आया because I didn't enjoy metallurgical engineering. Metallurgical engineering, I was learning about ore dressing and how to blast furnaces, the iron carbon diagram, and I wasn't passionate about it.
Yeah. Sir was in Meta, I was in mining. There was like last few branches to get in.
Exactly.
So मेरे को तो depression था कि मैं किधर आ गया हूँ. Depression is a very wrong word, but yeah, I was like कि कहाँ आ गया हूँ. I joined NIT Surathkal because of a branch change.
Right.
Other option was year drop करो. And year drop करना at our time तो like dropper बोलते थे उसको.
बहुत बदनाम था वो.
बहुत बदनाम था. Dropper है भाई ये तो. उसका नाम 12वीं क्लास में तुम्हारे को एक स्टैम्प मिलता है that he is a dropper. तो फिर then I discussed with dad. He said जाओ branch change कर लेंगे. हुआ ही नहीं branch change. एक बच्चे की होती है. Who jumped to actually chemical. Rest of the folks didn't make it. But nevertheless, great sir. Sir, again, what life you have lived. These guys are starting. What is one regret of life यार ये और करना चाहिए था जो इनको बोलोगे कि भाई ये मत करना तो 21 साल की उम्र में जो
मैंने गलती करी So there are many mistakes one makes in life. I've had my share of mistakes in life. But so there is a life lesson and there's a career lesson that I'll share. The life lesson I would say is that if you are in love, discover a person who's right for you, go right ahead, don't hold back, because that regret will eat you later in life. Okay? So बाद में वो regret आपको खाए. Even if she says no, it's okay. But having said it, no, I've said कि ठीक है, opportunity तो नहीं खोया, right? So that's a life lesson I would like to tell everybody. And of course, there's a time to do that.
Did you get your love?
I did. On third attempt. I mean, so school, college attempts fail हो गए थे, but my first attempt outside of after working
Nice.
was successful.
Nice. And the career one, that's also important.
So the career one, there is a fork in my life which came when I was moving from automotive industry to I moved to IKEA, the home furnishing industry, and I loved IKEA. So no regrets about having gone through IKEA as a job. But there was a fork in my road when the alternate career could have been to join World Bank.
Acha.
That sometimes comes back to me, and I think, is that a choice I should have made? I could have gone to World Bank. It would have been fast. It would have been a very interesting job because it could have might have made a bigger impact, I feel, because World Bank was at that point in time funding lots of projects in India. There was a lot of things they wanted to clean up. There was a lot of corruption, and they saw me. I said, I was young and brash, and I said, you know what, I'll go and clean up this place. So I left that because I thought IKEA looked like a more fun place to work. So that is probably one regret I have. But in retrospect, not an entire regret because I loved IKEA. I still feel IKEA as a part of me.
That's great. Similar, sir. मेरा भी ऐसा है. I got through Ogilvy and GE. Ogilvy was paying 10,000 rupees for 2 months. And PPO वगैरह इतना मिलता नहीं था. This is post my MBA. And GE was like 80,000 rupees in 2007-8. And with Kingfisher flight and 2 months of free stay.
Right.
Obvious choice. Though I loved advertising.
Exactly.
Obvious choice. मतलब GE. तो मुझे कभी-कभी लगता है मुझे वो करना चाहिए था, but nevertheless, yeah, no regret. GE is in my blood. I love these companies. Sir, what's your advice for career? People say like shifting jobs. Like I spent like nearly 5 years in GE. I only know one company in the world, like GE. That's it. मुझे कुछ पता ही नहीं बाहर क्या है.
Right.
And उसके पहले विप्रो था 1 साल pre MBA. वो तो मतलब it was like a stepping stone to MBA.
Yeah.
समझ ही नहीं आता जो विप्रो में कर रहे थे, कुछ टेक थोड़ा बहुत कर रहे थे, बट कोड कॉपी कर पेस्ट करके डाल रहे थे आगे. बट नेवरदलेस, सो व्हाट्स योर रिकमेंडेशन टू राइज अप द वे यू रोज in the hierarchy?
So, do have some consistency. So, I think a decent stint at any company is like 5 years. I worked for 7 years in Maruti before I went to JCB, spent 5 years there. There was one short stint I did 1 year with New Holland. And sometimes the job choice is wrong. When you discover that the job choice is wrong, as in the whole setup doesn't work for you, you have a really terrible boss or something like that, then make a move. Sort of don't ruin your career by sticking on. But if it's a good company and you have an interesting role, do at least 4 or 5 years. I know these kind of timelines sound like a long time. And then I worked for 13 years in IKEA. So I think my longevity with these 3 companies was good. And my advice is that please don't jump too quickly, because a rolling stone, of course, doesn't gather moss. You don't get experience. You don't really learn stuff unless you spend, what I feel, at least a minimum of 3 years in any assignment that you work. Try to give it that kind of time so that you understand things well.
Got it, sir. And sir, how important is money, like in life, starting, middle, towards the, I'm not saying end of your life, but fag end of let's call it a good way, peak, euphemism, peak of your career.
So money is super important when you start out in your career. You're getting out of your college, I think money is super important. And although I am trying to teach students and trying to tell them discover yourself, look for higher purpose and all of that, I know that it's too early to talk about that. So practically the first 15, 20, maybe 30 years of your life is a lot of focus on money, on job, on family. So that's an inevitable path of
30
life.
30 years of corporate life or 1 to 30 you say?
No. 25 years of corporate life.
Achha,
You
that
are
means
20, maybe
45.
not. So 25, start at 25. I think 45 is the age. Some people are 40. 45 is the age by which you should have made a decent amount of money. And because there's no limit to greed, see, and even ambition. You can be ambitious about becoming CEO, CMD of one company, a bigger company, and so on. So there's no end to ambition. So at some point at 45 or so, I feel my midlife crisis, as it were, happened in my 40s, and at 50 I decided half a century, next half century is going to be something else. I'm going to do all the things I love doing, because I had earned enough money, had enough savings, I was comfortable, my son was out of college, and then I said, now I'm going to do only the things that matter to me and that I love doing, and it's not anymore about money.
Super. स्टार्टिंग में कमा लो, हाँ मैं भी
स्टार्टिंग में कमा लो,
कमा के छोड़ो. अभी तुम्हें वो पैसा नहीं चाहिए, ये सब नहीं चाहिए. I also never ran for money, sir, first few years of my life. And then somebody told me, like, when you have money, then you can make a bigger impact. Yeah. That was game changing.
Very true.
You know, I quit my GE job for 1 year and I was doing NGO. Nobody knows about it.
Wow.
It's the first time I'm talking about that. And then I was seeing Instagram में मेरे दोस्त कोई सिटी बैंक वाला न्यूयॉर्क में चिल कर रहा है, ये लोग बियर पे चिल कर रहे हैं और मैं ONGC के बाहर चंदा मांगने के लिए खड़ा हूँ. And I did that for 3 months, you know, and I could raise 3 lakh rupees and I was making an impact. I was working with deaf people helping them. I was setting up actually a BPO for deaf.
Right.
People who cannot
Yes,
speak
yes,
and
yes.
listen.
Wow.
So that they can type.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I did that. I'm still doing it. I keep it very low key. But वहाँ पे मुझे लगा अभी पैसा चाहिए थोड़ा सा यार. अभी मेरे को ट्रैवल का कीड़ा था. तो ट्रैवल तो करना ही करना है. तो सर की मैंने भी कंट्रीज मैच किया. I was done sir 35. So वो नहीं कर पाता मैं उससे.
Right. Exactly.
And I want to help people.
Yeah.
So right now also I'm doing it. It's been 10 years plus. In fact, 15 years. I'm running my not-for-profit. But it's not that full scale which I tried doing it. But my retired goal is that.
Amazing.
So
that side of you is beautiful that you shared with me, and
Thank you,
so you've gone up in my eyes because of
Thank
that.
you. I told you I'm a good guy,
Please,
but
yeah.
I keep it coming. I'm just kidding. So great. This is lovely. Some passion. So बोलते तो है do what you love, love what you do. पता ही नहीं होता passion होता क्या है, कैसे ढूंढना है. ये तमाशा मूवी देखते हैं ये लोग और उठ के निकल जाते हैं. Passion. There's a movie called Tamasha.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
see that?
Absolutely.
कि मैं passion follow करूँगा. How did you find your passion?
So when I did this 50 change, when I decided I'm going to move away from the corporate world to do things that I love, I really asked myself. I did a few psychometric tests and so on,
Achha.
and I read this book called Ikigai. Somehow I fell in love with it, and I actually thought, well, let's see what it's saying. Something interesting about meaningfulness, about the purpose of life, and things like that. And I started exploring spirituality as well. So I found my passion as a consequence of, I think, that book, the fact that I'd hit this midlife 50 age, and I started asking myself what truly matters to me. And the answer to that question was that I think people really matter to me. I'm a very people person, I feel. And generally people say the same thing about me. So hopefully I'm not being too immodest out there. But sustainability is the other thing. So sustainability and people were the things that came up even in all these psychometric tests and strength profiling and all that. Those two things came up very high. So I said, I must do something in this space. And I gradually discovered that was giving me a lot more joy at this stage of life. It's not that I have any regret about my first, but at this stage,
ठीक चल रहा था, IKEA चल रहा था ना आपका,
absolutely,
जॉब चल रही थी, JCB चल रहा था. यही सर 25 साल की उम्र पता करना हो कि मेरे को ये मेरा पैशन है, वो थिल्ले बैठा है, हो गया अभी, IIM कैलकाटा का बंदा है वो, तो वो कैसे कर सकते हैं, कुछ है क्या आइडिया?
It's tough. It's not easy, and I don't think I discovered it when I was 25.
Yeah.
But now I'm teaching students a course called self-leadership, following in the footsteps of Anil, who actually taught this course and curated this course. It's called self-leadership, and I take that course for my students, and there I try to we expose them to many tools. We ask them to explore their inner self, become mindful, become more balanced, develop all your faculties. And at one stage, we talk about discovering purpose. And my favorite tool out there is the Ikigai tool.
Oh, please explain, sir. Yeah.
So Ikigai is a concept that that was discovered in Japan. They found that in the islands of Okinawa, which is tiny islands far to the south of Japan, people lived the longest lives,
the blue
oldest,
zone.
and the blue zone, exactly. It's one of the blue zones.
Yeah.
So there, people live up to the age of 120, and they're like chilling, and they're old, but they're doing their gardening, they're doing what? They look very happy. So some researchers landed up out there and tried to discover what is the secret of their joy and long life. So long life can be a curse. Living a long life is not an end in itself. You need to be happy, active, and productive. That's when a long life is meaningful. So they had both. So what was it? So these people said they didn't like sell it like a marketing tool like Ikigai is what we do or something, but their conversations brought out the fact that they did have a concept called Ikigai, which means purpose of existence. And so what did it consist of? It consisted of having something meaningful to do, which brought value to the world. It was something that they were good at, something they were passionate about, and also sometimes it earned them some money. So combination of these four elements coming together.
So value, what you're good at, what you passionate about, and what can give you money.
Yes.
That's also very important.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So there's this beautiful Venn diagram that the chap who wrote that book, the four circles, and it is not that all four will overlap in only one thing, and that is your Ikigai, because that's very hard to find.
Yeah.
You don't have only one purpose in life, so it can have four elements, not purpose as in. The four dimensions are your profession. Okay, the profession is the overlap between what you're good at and what can give you money.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your job. So try to find a job which do something that you're good at, okay, and then it earns you money. So that's when you'll be successful. Unless you're good at something, there's no point, right, getting into that. Then there's an overlap between what you love and what you're good at, okay, and that can be your personal passion. It may have no overlap with money making and so on. That's like guitar bajane mein maza aata hai, so I'll do that. That's my personal passion. Doesn't earn money, but it keeps me happy because that's one side of me that needs to be evolved. Then there's an overlap between what the world needs and what can earn you money. You may not be good at it, you may not be passionate about it. That can be your side gig or your vocation. Okay.
I'm doing it because the world needs it and I'm getting money out of it.
Yes, exactly. And then there is an overlap between what you love doing and what the world needs. That's your mission. Okay. And your mission from our recent conversation is probably giving back in that space, whether it is deaf children or whatever. I mean, and I try to get into sustainability. That was my mission. So you have a personal mission. You have a passion, you have a profession, and a vocation. So those four things give you direction in life. And so this is a model that I think appealed a lot to me. And I think when I talk to my students about it, many of them connect to it. Wow. And so at least you start thinking about these things.
Yeah, you start thinking about कि ये मैं गलत कर रहा हूँ. ये सर Gen Z आजकल तो reports आ रही हैं. इनको तो हर चीज़ गलत लगती है. Most of my friends are like, they're like, it's difficult to hire Gen Z. 3 महीने काम करते हैं, कुछ बोलो तो भाई resignation जेब में होता है.
Yes.
And whatnot. That's
very demanding, very different. They're very distracted, very tough to hold their attention. So
because it looks like ikigai, right? Yeah. They're finding the ikigai which we didn't have it, and yeah, this is so amazing. Great, sir. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Sir, any parting thoughts for all my 21-year-olds? Sir, ये लोग मैं दोबारा बोल रहा हूँ, वो जिंदगी जीना चाहते हैं जो आप जी रहे हैं अभी, and they want to commit this career. When you think of retiring at 50, at sir your time retiring at 50 is like when you start your career you could have never thought about retiring at 50.
No.
And sir changed. He adapted the world. सब लोग बोल रहे हैं ना कि यार जल्दी retire हो सकते हैं, right?
Yeah.
You can earn your gig. But what's your final thought to all these people that are listening to us?
My final thought is follow your dreams and make a difference to the world. Do something meaningful. Of course, chase money. In the beginning of your career, everybody chases money, but eventually do something that is meaningful, so that when you're close to the passing away and saying goodbye to the world, you should have left behind some footprints, some impact on this planet, which is positive. There should be people who look back at you and say, he was a great guy, he was a good guy, he did something that made the world a better place. Make the world a better place. That's my message.
That's so amazing. So Robin Sharma says, like, in a book called Who Will Cry When You Die. Yeah, and it's a scary chapter to read it, but he talks about what's epitaph you want to leave. You know?
Right, exactly.
It's like engraving on their graveyard.
Yeah.
जब तुम हमारे तो चलो हम लोग
पानी में बहा देते हैं
करते हैं या फिर पानी बहाते हैं. So what kind of tombstone के ऊपर तुम्हारे क्या लिखा होगा वो देखो बैठ के.
Yes.
Alright, boys and girls, hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. If yes, do it the like button for sure. और तुम मुझे बताओ, what's your ikigai? What are you guys thinking? And अगर सर के पास पढ़ना है, sir is the professor at Soil right now, teaching you operations, and also he's taken up some leadership skills from the founder of the school, Anil sir, as well, and he's teaching in the classroom as well. It's so amazing, sir. Pleasure to have you on board.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Do it the like button for sure, boys and girls, और comment करके बताइए what's your ikigai. Discussion करते हैं comment section के अंदर. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.